Read on all of this from former senior economic advisor to President Barack Obama, Austan Goolsbee. Austan, very good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again, Neil.
You know, first off, on your expectations here, are you in that camp that it's another quarter point and then go slow next year to see what develops and maybe cut 3 planned hikes to 2 or fewer? What do you think?
Yeah, fewer, I think. You know, as we've talked about before, I'm consistently of the view that growth is pretty good, but not as good as what the Fed wants it to be or what the Fed forecasts. And so when the rubber actually hits the road, they always can go fewer times and less high and than they think, you know, in their brightest moments. So I think there's at least some yellow light warning signals that are going to make them rethink it a little.
Yeah, this president has been jawboning that he thinks it would be a mistake for the Federal Reserve to hike rates in this environment. The dollar is strong, inflation is nowhere to be found. On that basis alone, do you think a rate hike now is advisable?
Well, I don't think rate hikes are that advisable, or at least I would like to have some stronger evidence. But I think most people would agree that the president really should not be doing what he's doing, out trying to publicly jawbone the Fed and personally criticize the head of the Fed that he appointed and that you knew perfectly well wanted to follow the route that they're following. The irony will be as if he backs the Fed into the position where they have to raise rates so that the world doesn't think that the president's bossing them around.
You know, when all this started, the reversal of near 0% interest rates in late 2015, you know, Barack Obama was still president. Was there frustration? I know you had left the administration by that point, but was there frustration that there was going to be a steady climb in rates, that this was the way it was going to be? No one knew where it would end. We still don't. But how was that conveyed?
I don't think there was frustration. I mean, certainly in the period, I mean, if you remember in the period when I was in the government, many of the same people now saying that there's going to be imminent danger of inflation and the Fed needs to raise the rates a lot. They were saying that in 2011. I think realistically, if the economy starts to improve, they should start raising the rates. But until you get past all dangers and until you start seeing some evidence of inflation, given that the Fed is dramatically reducing its balance sheet at the same time, and we don't really know what impact that's going to have, that's a form of tightening that's kind of the silent tightening. I'm just a little nervous that one of the principal causes of recessions in U.S. economic history since we've been keeping track has been the Fed tightening rates. And in a world where the Fed's forecast is fundamentally different from how the economy is doing, that's a bigger danger than I think people anticipate.
Yeah, when you talk about unwinding the balance sheet, it's a double whammy, right? Because you have to sell all of those notes and bonds that the Federal Reserve has been scooping up over these years. At the same time, you're hiking rates. So it does sort of have a 1-2 potential punch you're trying to avoid. But, you know, I also think about all our debt, Austan, accumulated under Democratic and Republican administrations alike, picking up steam now. But no one seems to show the resolve to get it under control. And I'm worried now when I hear the next entrants for the White House who are talking about free community college, free college, $500 a month checks for people. I'm not letting the Republicans get off with obviously submitting budgets that are getting collectively more deep in the red. But this is a big problem, and no one is addressing even containing its growth. On that level, does it bother you?
Look, it does bother me, and I think it is a concern, and it's especially a concern that we've never had a period where the deficit's going up like this while the unemployment rate is going down. Normally in booms is when you're supposed to be shrinking your deficits or moving to surplus. The thing is, why we pushed a $2 trillion+ tax cut that everyone knew perfectly well was going to explode the deficit and has, and then we're going to turn around and say, oh, the problem is middle-class people are getting too much Social Security or Medicare.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you can talk about that tax cut, but you can also talk about the $10 trillion in added spending built into the same budgets, right?
Well, it's true the president added a whole lot of defense spending that people had not anticipated.
But everyone signed on to everything. What I'm saying is that spending, say what you will of taxes, we can argue till the cows come home about whether that did stimulate or not, created revenue or not. But far more damaging was the figures that dwarfed that on the spending side. And there are pox on both parties,
but
right?
To be clear, when you say everyone supported that, everyone did not support that.
No, I'm not talking about the
Republicans rammed that through over the objection of the Democrats.
But there was no interest in reining in spending on the part of either party, which exponentially was 6 times the size of that tax cut. Yet no one talks about that.
Everyone talks about that. And, Neil, the fact is,
no, you didn't.
After the recession,
Austan, you didn't right there.
I did. I just told you the president increased the defense budget quite substantially, and that
contributes to the deficit. But you immediately blame the tax cut. I'm not apologizing for the tax cut. I just find it interesting that, and you're also very good with numbers, but I mean, you're talking about a couple of trillion versus 10 to 12 trillion in added spending. I'm looking at the man and saying, well, I'd be worried a lot more about the spending. Right?
You need to check your numbers on the increase in the spending, because the increase in the spending is not that much bigger. You're lumping in the growth of entitlements, which were perfectly well
we're going to add
forecast.
10 to 12 trillion dollars to our overall spending and debt as a result of this.
Which was all forecast. You're just basing that on the aging of the population. The increment that we got that was new
the commitments
was a
on the
huge
part of
increase
the
of
government,
taxes.
but the wherewithal of the government to get a control of how much it spends is a far bigger issue than whether it grants tax cuts, right?
If you're concerned about that, don't go throw away $2 trillion of revenue. That is what happened. We've known about the aging of the population for a long time. We then made the problem demonstrably worse by adding $2 trillion because of the tax cut. And
so the spending that built up, that built up under your old boss throughout that process, and I can perfectly understand coming out as we did of the environment that he inherited when he came into office, that had zilch to do with the debt that was accumulated during those years.
The spending did not build up on discretionary spending, and you know that. The spending that built up has to do with the aging of the population.
Did we increase debt 10 trillion or not during that period?
Yes, the debt went up 10 trillion because there was the deepest recession of our lifetimes. The deficit was cut more than in half after the recession ended, and now we're going to run the deficit up to something bigger than it was during the recession.
But is it fair enough to say, Austan, that both parties? But is it fair enough to say that both parties shirked their responsibility to get spending under control?
Not really, no. In this case, of the last 2 years, the Democrats universally opposed this budget.
You know that both parties blew it when it came to addressing our fiscal resolve, big time.
Neil,
and by the way, I'm not an apologist for Donald Trump. He has botched it big time because he's not leading with any sort of fiscal guidance.
You're wanting to blame both sides. Look, you want to blame both sides, but you cannot excuse that if you know there's an aging population that will lead to higher Social Security and Medicare, why are you cutting revenues by more than $2 trillion?
All right, so if you cut that, if you cut those revenues, you don't think we'd have anything approaching the debt levels that are building now? You think that's all on the tax cut?
I think the tax cut added more than $2 trillion.
All right.